Well, hello and good morning. My name is Jeff. That gentleman there, handsome gentleman, that's Mike.
Good
Good
morning,
morning to
everyone.
all. Good
Good morning,
morning.
all.
We are the co hosts of this podcast we call Old People This Week. And of course, we're referring to other people, not the two of us. Every week, we endeavor to bring you the stories, the news behind the news that you need to know heading into the weekend so you sound smart with your friends when you're playing golf or playing bridge or out at the gym or having coffee or of course at happy hour where Mike and I do all of our research,
Distilling our thoughts.
distilling our thoughts. The a little bit of business, make sure you subscribe. Mike and I need you to subscribe, so we'll remind you now and at the end. And check out our Substack, which I will put the address below. Last week was a task for you to do called Don't Look Now. And this week we have one called Lighten Your Load, which is a sort of a way for you to get yourself mentally prepared for 2024, which is going to be a strenuous, crazy year. It's an election year. It's going to be
Man,
nuts.
crazy.
Yeah, man. Um, I wanted to start off by saying that, of course, that this is not a podcast if you're old and infirm necessarily, at least mentally. We want you sharp. We want you mentally agile. If you're subscribed to the I've fallen down and can't get up school of aging, then this podcast probably isn't for you. But Mike and I, we don't worry about falling down. We've got all of our faculties together.
And we don't play pickleball, so we're not going to get injured in the near term.
I've watched pickleball down at the park, and it's not it, for. I know why older people like it, because you don't really have to do much. You stand in one spot and you try to hit the ball back.
Yeah, hit a dead ball with a dead paddle. Very
Yeah, hit a dead
exciting.
ball with a dead paddle, and then they all it does is make noise, and they think themselves as athletes. Well, let them join me at the gym someday, and we'll see if they're really athletes or not. Um, I wanted to start off by telling you a story. I this is how did I know when I was old? And this is my anecdote for how I found out that I was old. I was in New York City on 7th Avenue, down by 33rd Street, across from Madison Square Garden, where I was working at the time for Madison Square Garden Media. And I decided to go have some lunch. And I was probably, this a few years younger than now, so I was probably in my mid 60s, mid to late 60s. And it was a cold, blustery day in New York City, as they often are. And I decided to walk down. There was a bodega, maybe a half a block from the office. And as I got closer, ahead of me was a woman who was at least 9.5 months pregnant. She was enormous. And she was ready to drop. I wouldn't have been surprised if she gave birth right that moment. But in the flash that I saw her in the door to the bodega, she ran over, grabbed the door for me, and said, "Here you go. Here you are, sir." So I had the humiliating experience of having the door open for me by a woman who was barely walk, and to let the old guy in.
So did you
And I
pretend?
and
Did you pretend to limp or something?
I didn't have to pretend anything. I was humiliated. My head was down. I sort of slunk in there when everybody's watching me. And then I grabbed something and just and took off out the back door. It was so bad. So that's the moment that I knew that I was aging.
Mine was a little more prosaic. We were in Telluride, and someone foolishly convinced me to try snowboarding, and I was well into my 60s at the time. And I thought, hell, how hard can that be? Both feet are on the board. They're going to go in the same direction. So all you have to do is point it downhill. And after the collision that was described to me later by the people who were with me, I woke up in an emergency room. I was airlifted to surgery in San Francisco from Telluride. And some say I haven't been the same since, but lesson learned.
Yeah, you well in your case you you realized your limitations. You
Too late.
experienced. Yeah, too late.
Too
You
late.
saw the end of your limitations. You reached it.
Uh,
You
that
pushed
tr-
the envelope as far as you could.
that pine tree approached at a rapid pace, and I had no ability to change direction. It was
Have
ugly.
you skied since?
Hell no.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't ski either. My knees are too bad to go down a hill like that. I also skied. We used to go to Park City all the time, and I had humiliating experiences, but it wasn't because of my age. It was just because of a lack of skill.
Yeah, in
I
my
often
case,
found myself on my back sliding down the hill.
yeah, in my case, age plus lack of judgment. That's a deadly cocktail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's for sure. Um, so the story I wanted to talk about, the first sort of issue I wanted to talk about was I read about these. It's about working into your, well, in this case, 90s and 100s, which is pretty crazy and amazing in one sense. That I read about three people who are working well into later in life. The first is a woman named Jane Burns who turned 101 in July. And she's had the same part-time job as a fabric cutter at Joanne Fabric and Craft Store in Mason, Ohio for 26 years. Now, you minus 26 years minus 101, that means she was, she was probably doing something for a long time before that.
Yeah.
And she had other careers, a bookkeeper through her 70s and 80s and so on and so forth. The second woman is named by the name of Melba McBain, who was 91 and who worked at a Dillard's department store in Tyler, Texas, for 7 decades.
Holy cow.
And she would her what I found interesting about her story was that she, during those 70 odd years she was at the store, she had opportunities to become a manager, but she always turned that opportunity down because she says nobody likes management because they have to make the tough decisions. Now, having been a manager, I know that Melba was exactly correct, and that
Yeah.
is something that you don't want. Which is why, by the way, in retirement, when my wife says, "Why don't you take a job?" I'm not taking orders from anyone else,
Yeah,
and I'm not giving orders to anyone else. I'm done.
you're irascible enough as it is.
Well, that's yeah, that came that came also as part of the learning experience of being a manager. Is you
Yeah.
almost have to be irascible. And the third is this guy, Bob Roloff, who's been cutting hair for almost as long as he's been alive. And at 91 years, he doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. He's at a barbershop. He just opened his own barbershop after he turned 90 in Hortonville, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee. He started cutting hair in 1948, and he trained under his dad and so on and so forth. But I guess the question is that there's two diverting points of view here. In my point of view is I don't want to work anymore. I have no interest in doing anything for anyone or managing anyone. But some people find great joy in working. I wondered what do you think?
Well, I was born and raised on a working ranch. So from as far back as I can remember, I was doing hard physical labor, and a lot of it, and 6 or 7 days a week. Went to college, went into business, got into, traveled the world, did all sorts of different things, but that work ethic never ceased. I always had to be busy. I always had to be doing something. And when we got the chance, when my wife semi-retired, she's still working, and she's our age. I mean, aging as we call it, not old. But we're approaching our 80s, and both still. She works pretty much full time with her consulting business. I occasionally get a consulting project, but to keep myself from going crazy, I work at the golf club, and combines both my interest in being out of the house and playing golf with staying busy and being around people and having some interaction and that kind of thing. But so I can't imagine not doing anything. I can't imagine not being active, not having something to get up and go to. And it doesn't need to be, like, as you say, it doesn't need to be managing something or someone. Um, you know, I hate those kinds of pressures and decisions anymore. I mean, I did it long enough, but the notion of having something to do, however that's defined individually, I think is spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. In your opinion and mine, I agree that there's something about each individual person's work ethic. Meaning, if
Yeah,
they grew up that way, they have a work ethic. They want to keep busy. But in
yeah,
my case, I don't want necessarily need to be customer facing or be around people or actually earning a paycheck. I prefer to do things like this podcast or other, take photos and do other things I want to do. Yeah,
yeah,
keeping busy, I guess, is the key here, regardless of of what you do is that by keeping busy, you're keeping yourself at least feeling young and vital and involved and connected.
yeah. For me, it's engagement. I mean, um, I want to be able to converse with different people in different situations. Um, I hate it when you're in a conversation in a group of people and somebody's just looking at you with a blank stare because they have no idea what's going on or what's current or that kind of thing. So it's just
Yeah,
I think it's mentally healthy as much as physically getting out and doing something.
yeah. You got to keep yourself vital. You got to keep yourself in the game. Otherwise, you're out of the game. So
Yeah,
that's the lesson here for at least I think for these people from Melba, Bob, and Jane. They want to feel necessary, and by cutting hair, working at the fabric shop, or being a sales associate at Dillard's, that keeps them makes them happy, and maybe that's the point.
yeah,
Maybe those people who retired. I have a friend who retired when he was in his mid to late 50s because he was able to because he worked for the railroad. He'd already put in 30 years, so he retired. And
yeah,
he told me years after that he wished he hadn't retired because it's simply he didn't have enough to do. And he wished he kept working.
yeah,
So there's also that. There's that part of just getting up in the morning, getting dressed, shower, change, go. I got to go to work, and it keeps me vital.
yeah. Yeah, I can spend 4 hours detailing my car and be a very happy camper, but I'm doing something, and and it's measurable. I
Yeah,
can I can see the outcome of all the labor, which is
yeah.
not,
I can,
well,
I can help you with that. Come over and detail my car this weekend.
yeah, nice
I'll
try.
keep you plenty busy. I got two of them, as a matter of fact. You do my wife's car as well.
Nice try.
Um, the also I wanted to talk about again talk about keeping sort of conversant in everything that's going on is what you watch. So we have a friend Rick. We've talked about him often, who watches only black and white movies, and he's sort of because of that he's sort of not conversant in what's actually streaming at any time since 2000. So he doesn't know any modern thing.
Yeah.
But my wife and I watched a series on Netflix this past. It probably took us 2.5 weeks to get through it. It was called "Fool Me Once," which was it's just one of these multi episodic thrillers with a lot of plot twists and turns. But it was written by this guy named Harlan Coben,
Coben, yeah.
Coben. Harlan.
Yeah.
All right. So I was looking around for something else to watch when we got done with that, and I kept seeing his name, Harlan Coben, on all these other projects, all these other films and series that are on Netflix. So I Googled it, and it turns out he has 8 series currently on Netflix. The
Wow.
Stranger, The Stranger, Safe with the Guy from 6 Feet Under, Gone for Good, The Woods, Stay Close, Innocent, Hold Tight, and the one we just finished, Fool Me Once. And he had one more, they said, called The Five, that was adapted from one of his novels, that was only licensed to Netflix for a certain amount of time, so it's now off. But so 9 series, and they say that because of the popularity of this recent one, this Fool Me Once, now they've ordered a whole new batch of them. So this dude is a prolific,
Holy cow.
incredibly prolific writer. and well, evidently a screenwriter too. But the
But
plots are crazy, and this one at least this fooled me once. It had a bunch of red herrings and
yeah,
twists and turns, but everything got solved in the last hour. So you waited, and all was you had to wait till the last hour, and then everything was revealed: who the killer was, who the
yeah.
it was. So it was kind of a cheat, but it did hold your attention for I think it was like 8 episodes.
But that brings up the point because we're like you, we surf for things to watch, and my wife subscribes to the Hollywood Reporter because of her business, so we get a lead every now and then on something that's up and coming or exciting. But there's so much content that you
Yeah,
could, like that, you could spend your entire year watching Harlan Coben thrillers,
yeah, yeah,
and the world would pass you by. And
yeah.
we just wrapped up watching the show that's currently getting all the buzz and the award nominations and everything, called Beef, and it's a very interesting story. It's funny, it's comical, it's pivotal in some cases. Um, but we watched that, and then as we're watching it, and as we talk to other people, there are 50 other things out there
Yeah.
that people are watching
Yeah,
depending upon their interests or point of views. There's just so much content.
there's an incredible amount of content. The We lurch from thing to thing because, like you, we'll be watching one, and then we had our one of our sons text us and said, "Well, you have to see American Nightmare. It's
Yeah,
incredible."
yeah,
And and so that's out of the realm of it's a documentary, not a not a scripted show. So it's different, but it's still now we're going to go watch that, and then there's a Judd Apatow series that is on Netflix that came and went, but it's supposed to be really funny. But if I get involved in that, then I'm missing out on the next new one. Who knows what to watch?
yeah. No, it's
But
crazy.
I did watch
Well,
this thing called. I liked it, and also a lot of them because there was a lot of need for content while the writers were on strike and while the actors were on strike.
sure.
Netflix bought a ton of stuff from all around the world.
Yeah,
And I watched this one from Portugal called "Wrong Side of the Tracks." That was basically about this ass kicking grandpa who was uh, who was taking on a bunch of drug dealers in his neighborhood. So that was good. I could
that's
relate to him.
that's like Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino.
That's exactly
Same.
right. Gran
Yeah,
Torino, where and Clint can get away with being an out and out racist and out and out things that in real life that you and I couldn't get away with.
couldn't
So,
do.
and speaking of interesting sort of, well, this is falls into the realm of not just a fad, but of where fads gone wrong. the the police up in here in California near Sacramento arrested a woman. She had $2,500 worth of Stanley cups in her car. Now that was the headline. So was, well, is it a Stanley Cup, as in the Stanley Cup playoff? Why does she
Yeah.
have those?
Why does she have a
So
hockey trophy in the back of her car?
so I looked it up, and it turns out that the Stanley Cup is actually a type of sort of a quencher. They call it a 40-ounce giant drinking cup that you might bring to work with you or bring wherever, as people do nowadays. I mean, even I,
Yeah,
at my last job, I brought a water container with me every day,
yeah,
and they've become more sophisticated and more sought after. And somehow, some way, over the past, say, 6 months, these Stanley cups have become the absolute you must have cup to the point where they can't keep them in the stores. You can't get them online. And they're collectibles, and people hoard them and keep them in their homes and take Instagram pictures of them. And
yeah,
that's it's everything.
yeah. There was I guess, some TikTok event that caused this craziness, and basically, it's a Yeti in designer clothing. The Yeti cups and the coolers and that whole line of
Yeah,
kind of outdoorsy adventure gear. But yeah, and other than the fact that the collectible one is pink, and it provides no different functions than any other cup out there.
Yeah,
I guess it's just a measure of the influence of social media and the
yeah. Well,
networking.
so this woman, these people are lining up in front of a Target for hours and sleeping out so they can be the first in line. Well, this woman simply went in and filled up a shopping cart full of Stanley water bottles and tried to bolt out the front door without paying for them.
Oh, good.
The suspect refused to stop for the staff and stuffed her car with the stolen merchandise. Uh, it didn't take, within a minute or so, they'd called the cops. The cops see the vehicle just as it got on the freeway near Sacramento and pulled her over. And the picture that I'm showing now, it shows how the stash that they took out of the back of the trunk of her car, and they just show how much they got. And then in a sort of a dry, almost humorous way, the cops said, and I quote, "While Stanley quenchers are all the rage, we strongly advise against turning to crime to fulfill your hydration habits. Thank you, officer.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciate it."
Busted for coffee cup theft.
Well,
Explain
it's
that.
like, but the $2,500 worth of cups that she took, probably would be worth $10,000 on eBay.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's the reason. It
yeah.
was. I don't even think she was a collector. She was just a thief. It always kills me. And in a lot of these cases that we talk about, how stupid people are. Like last week, we talked about the woman who tried to hide in the couch.
In the sofa.
Yeah, she was a fentanyl manufacturer or something, and she's trying to hide inside of a sofa. And people actually think they can get away with things like this woman. I'm just going to run out to my car and throw it all
Yeah.
in there and drive away, and nobody's going to do anything.
Well, she's watched all these smash and grab videos about these morons who, go in and steal stuff, walk out the front door, and companies have told their employees don't intervene, let them go. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's
they don't want them
probably
to get hurt. I have a friend who works at Ace Hardware, and he says that they have that brand called Steel, Stihl, that
yeah,
makes kind of
power
power
tools.
tools,
Yeah,
and he said that they're the most often stolen things in the Ace Hardware store, and his bosses have told him don't get in the way. These guys, if they come and get it, you don't want to lose your life or you don't want to be a part of it. We can either
yeah,
we'll replace it or we'll find them, but don't put yourself in harm's way.
yeah. It's crazy. Well, to the point of the Stanley Cup, there was a note in the news a couple of days ago about an employee at a Walmart, an employee who bought several Stanley Cups and was fired because they got him at employee discount price instead
Yeah,
of leaving them on the shelves for customers to pay full price. I mean,
yeah.
how
I don't know
screwed up is that?
if he technically or she technically did anything wrong, given that that's why
She
they have the
didn't.
employee. Yeah,
She didn't. She
no,
she
but
violated their corporate greed standards.
and that's hard standard, but that's a low bar. Not to worry about violating some corporate standard. All right, for the last story today, we always go down south. Sometimes we veer towards other parts of the country, but this is another one from the south. Um, this is in Alabama, of course, in Leeds, Alabama. A man crashed his car outside of a Bass Pro shop in Leeds, Alabama, stripped down to his birthday suit, and plunged into the giant aquarium inside the store, police said. The ordeal happened in front of shocked shoppers in the town, which is just outside Birmingham. And then the classic part of what I loved about this story is that the 42-year-old Alabama man, naked Alabama man, did a cannonball leap into the aquarium, then stood under the waterfall, and he left the water only to yell at the two police officers, then dove back into the aquarium. And it always, I wonder if just how much liquor it takes to get yourself to a point, or how much meth or whatever vice of choice you have, how much you have to imbibe to get yourself to smash into the front of a outdoor army store, take off your clothes, and jump into a giant aquarium.
Have you ever been in a Bass Pro shop? It's
No.
like Disneyland for hunters and fishermen. They are theatrical. They are incredibly well merchandised. They're incredibly well designed, but most of them have these giant water features in the middle of the store. And a lot of them have indoor fishing boat dealerships, motorhome deal. I mean, they're incredible stores. Crazy.
Well, I imagine it's a great store, but and wonderful. But your experience of going there would be slightly marred by the fact of a naked man jumping into the aquarium.
Yeah, just as
That
you're
was
picking out your favorite fishing lure, and you see some guy
I would have
swimming.
I would have picked out my favorite gun and tried to arrest the guy. Well, this has been a fun show as always. Um, Make sure you subscribe, please.
Please
Check
subscribe.
our Yeah, check out our Substack and get your task for this week. And let us know. You can email us at the address below and let us know what's going on. And thank you all, and see you next week. Mike, I think I'm going to see you tonight at the Sip and Smoke.
Sip and smoke. I'll bring you a terrific cigar you'll enjoy.
This will give us plenty to talk about next week, whatever behavior we get into. We better stay away from the Bass Pro Shops tonight if we drink too much.
And we'll get Rick's update on the latest movie from the '60s that he's been watching.
He's probably hey, did you guys ever seen this show called Mod Squad? It's brand new,
Yeah,
streaming.
yeah. I just saw it in color.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay, see you later. Thanks, Jeff.